I am back as promised to talk with Gabriel Schchter about the 1961 Cincinnati Reds. Howdy, Gabriel. How are you?
I'm fine, Ralph. It's a beautiful day up here in Oregon, and I'm eager to talk to you about my 61 Reds.
Great, because as we were talking off air, they are a team in my sim league that I play, and I'm familiar with them, but not as much as you are. You grew up rooting for this team, and have at it, my friend.
Yes, well, my father was born in Cincinnati in 1906. He told me he attended the 1919 World Series, and I don't doubt him. He attended the 39 World Series when the Yankees swept the Reds. And so I was born as a lifelong Reds fan. Some years it feels like a congenital defect, but not in 1961. That was my coming of age year in baseball. I turned 10 that year. I had sort of been aware of the major leagues, remember a little bit of the 59 and 60 World Series, but in 61 I became truly aware, and what a time for it.
Yes. We're talking Frank Robinson, Vada Pinson. How about that for starters?
Yeah, that was the foundation of the offense for sure. But unlike the Big Red Machine, the strength of that 61 team was really its pitching. Both the starting rotation, they had three very strong starters and a very strong bullpen.
Publicity as for their pitching, they were overshadowed by the aforementioned Robinson and Pinson. It wasn't just them. It was it Gordy Coleman at first?
Gordy Coleman at first, Gene Freese at third. They both had good years. They had Jerry Lynch and Gus Bell in the outfield.
Eddie Castro was a good hitting infielder and a solid ball.
Solid shortstop. Don Blasingame had kind of an off year. That's why he lost his job a couple of years later to Pete Rose. But
yeah, that's why. Pete Rose.
Yeah, the big three of the rotation. Yeah, the big three of the rotation was the strength. I mean, Joey J led the league in wins, went 21-10. Jim O'Toole went 19-9. Bob Perkey 16-12. 28 complete games. That was the backbone of that team.
And Joey J, who came from Milwaukee, was the first little leaguer to make it to the big leagues. That's what I remember about him.
The tough right-hander. Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing that made the 61 season great for me was that my father took us to see two Reds-Phillies doubleheaders in Philadelphia. I grew up about 8 miles from the George Washington Bridge, so it was about a 2.5-hour drive, and we went to two doubleheaders. One, I've looked up the box scores. I remember a ton of the details, but I got the box scores out. The first one was on June 18th, and the second one was on Labor Day. And I remember both vividly. We drove down the first day, and we got there a little bit late and then had trouble parking. And on the way in, we listened to Jim Maloney, who was a rookie. We listened to him walk four guys in the second inning and get knocked out before we even got there. We finally parked, and we saw a policeman coming toward us as we parked. Well, what did we do wrong now? We finally found a spot to park. Well, he had two tickets he wanted to sell. He hadn't been able to scalp them, I guess, or somebody had bribed him with them. And so he had to say, all right, we'll take the two tickets. They were in the first row between the plate and the Reds dugout. Unbelievable.
Oh, wow.
Unbelievable seat. And so we saw the Reds reliever, Howie Nunn, pitch shutout ball the rest of the way. The Reds won that one 7-2. In the nightcap, Jim O'Toole pitched a shutout. They won 10-0. That was a romp. When we came back on Labor Day, the first game of the doubleheader, Ken Johnson, the knuckleballer who wasn't even with the team in June, he pitched a shutout. So now my father and I had seen 25 shutout innings in a row. We still hadn't seen the Phillies score. In the nightcap, they scored in the fourth inning. My father said, well, that's all we need to see. Time to go. We listened to the rest of the game. The Reds are going to give up runs. If we have to watch the Reds give up runs, no. We'll just listen on the radio on the drive home.
And again, 2.5 hours, so he's a busy man that day.
Oh, man. Yeah, and then back to work the next day. I can still see, Ralph, the start of the first game of the Labor Day doubleheader. Elio Chacon, second baseman, who later gained a kind of notoriety with the Mets when he got in a brawl at second base with Orlando Cepeda. But I digress. In Philly that day at Connie Mack Stadium, he led off the first game with a push punt for a single. Eddie Casco followed with a home run to left center. Vada Pinson singled. Frank Robinson hit this high, towering drive to left field. It looked like it would never come down or how far it would go. And Johnny Calzin made this incredible leaping catch to rob him of a home run, turned it into a double play. That's what I remember. Yeah.
Well, Gabriel, do you know what I remember about the 61 team was that it was chronicled by Jim Brosnan.
Absolutely.
His book that one of them, I guess it was Pennant Race. There was one called.
Yes, I have my copy right in front of me. Yeah, he had written The Long Season the year before, and he wrote it in 1960, or it came out in 60. It was about his experiences in 59 when he was traded from the Cardinals to the Reds. And then in 61, he kept a diary just to keep the diary, and it turned out to be the diary of a long shot pennant winner, and it's called Pennant Race. It's a great little book.
As a kid, it was the most insightful book into the way big league ball was played. And he tells a story in one of the books, I can't remember which. He's in the bullpen about to warm up. And here comes, as he looks into the stands, here comes his wife with the baby. And she just couldn't take it anymore. And she was coming down because here's a baseball wife, young woman with baby in arms, and it really gave the idea to me as a kid that these people are just human beings. They're not statistics.
Absolutely.
They get up in the morning, they have a head cold. They may have had an argument with their spouse. Their kid may be sick. They just, there's a myriad of things that go into how a player performs, and it's a long haul. In those days, 100.
Yeah.
Now 162.
Yeah.
And that's what Brosnan taught me when I was a little boy, which made my future life as someone who meets people much easier when I realized these are just humans. No
Absolutely.
It just makes it easier. I don't worship anymore based on anything other than than the type of human person is, and makes my life easier.
Absolutely.
That's what that book gave me.
It's I've interviewed several dozen players from the '60s, and every one of them has stories of families being uprooted by their being moved from one major league or minor league franchise to another. Some of them made 10 or 15 stops on the way up with wives and babies and everything they wanted. Bobby Cox.
That they don't want to be
Bobby.
in. What?
Here's one for you. Bobby Cox drove his family, his wife and 5 or 6 kids from Oklahoma to Florida, sleeping in the car to get spring training to try to make the Yankees.
Wow.
So he went from there to the Hall of Fame. I interviewed Jim Brosnan. I went to his home in Illinois about maybe 25 years ago and had a very wonderful talk with him. And he's unique in baseball history. He was blackballed because of his writing. They asked when he was traded to the White Sox. These 2 books had come out, and they were candid, more candid than a ball player's memoir had ever been. It was nowhere near as extreme as Ball 4, the book that perched on Brosnan's shoulders. But Brosnan did discuss alcoholism, his own drinking, and just general ball player attitudes that had not been discussed in that way before. So when he was traded, he was still writing magazine articles for Saturday Evening Post and so on. And he was told. He was told one day, if you want to keep pitching, you have to stop writing. That it's in your contract. You will not write or publish anything while you're employed as a player. And he said, I won't do that. And so that was the end of his career.
Yeah.
That was it.
He did keep on writing.
Oh, absolutely. He wrote and he lived well, and that was his best revenge.
Yeah. He passed away a few years ago, maybe.
Yes, he did. Let me tell you about the other member of that team that I had a good interaction with, and he on the second page of this book he talks about Jim O'Toole. And O'Toole is as brash as Brendan Behan himself. That was O'Toole's first year as his breakthrough season. He went 19-9, and he had 10 children. I mean, a huge family. And I met him about a dozen years ago. He came to the Hall of Fame and visited the library, and he brought his wife and I think 6 of their kids. And we had gotten his file out, and he looked through every bit of that with the family, and it had clippings from the local newspaper and the sporting news from his career, like a big scrapbook. But he was most interested in a photo. And we had it in our photo files, and he left with the promise of a big blow-up print of it. And he saw the photo, and he turned to us. I said, there we are. Now, get this. It's a photo of Roger Maris' 61st home run, taken from ground level from the right field grandstand, probably from close to where the ball landed. And it shows Maris following through on his swing. And just past him in the first row of the stands behind the plate were Jim O'Toole and his wife, and Joey J. and his wife.
Oh, wow.
The Reds had clinched the pennant 3 or 4 days ahead of time, and the club sent them to New York to scout the Yankees. And so there they were in this photo. of Maris's 61st home run. I happen to have the copy of the photo that was on exhibit at the Baseballs America traveling exhibit that went around the country for a number of years. And it's a mounted image of that photo, which I have right here. It's a great, great photo.
Terrific.
What a connection, huh?
No question. And you found the picture for him.
Well, yeah, it was in Roger Maris's photo file, actually, because we had looked through his. It wasn't in his file because it's a photo of Maris.
Yeah. Just as you have a memory of that, he has a lifelong memory of you and the help you gave him.
Oh yeah, it was great making a lot of connections like that when I worked at the Hall of Fame. Absolutely. But that was a special one because I got to tell him about watching him pitch that shutout in '61. And it was, I'm looking at the box score now. The Reds won that game 10-0. Wally Post homered, Frank Robinson homered, Gene Freese went 4 for 5, and O'Toole pitched a 10-hit shutout.
Yeah. Wally Post was another one like Gus Bell that they were loaded and they were sluggers, and that was the reason.
That was that outfield. They had Wally Post, a good power hitter, Gus Bell, a great hitter, and Jerry Lynch. Now, all three of them were past their prime. But all three of them were still productive, and they were productive that season.
And combined with Pinson and Robinson. So Lynch was coming off the bench as a pinch hitter, tremendous pinch hitter. They were solid. They had I'm sorry. Let me give you a couple of the numbers. The platoon, Wally Post, had 20 homers, drove in 57 runs. Gus Bell, the other half of the platoon, drove in 33 runs. And Jerry Lynch, who was the premier pinch hitter of his era, hit 13 homers and drove in 50 runs. That's their third outfield position. That's 140 runs batted in from their third outfield position. Veda Pinson hit 343, led the league in hits with 208. Frank Robinson hit 323, drove in 124 runs, 37 homers. Gordy Coleman and Gene Freese had 26 homers apiece. You know, the Yankees had a huge power season. But the Reds had a ton of power that season as well. Of course, it all went south for the Reds in the World Series, but we don't have to talk about that, right? Coming up against that 61 Yankee team is a buzzsaw.
Yeah, absolutely was a buzzsaw.
No question. Talk about Freddie Hutchinson, what he meant to that team.
Oh, yeah, Hutch. You know, here in the Northwest, he's still beloved. He was from the Seattle area and pitched in the PCL for Seattle for a while before a pretty good pitching career with the Detroit Tigers. Then became a manager in the minors and worked his way up and was the manager of the 61 Reds. He was a gruff is the best word for him. He was not a happy-go-lucky guy. He was an all-business, sort of an Earl Weaver type, but with a better control of his temper. But a no-nonsense, this is the way to win, and a strength. Oh, maybe, you know, who a better analogy might be Gil Hodges as a manager. Just a guy, a tough-minded guy who had the respect of all of his players. Unfortunately, just a couple of years later, he contracted cancer, and he died, I think, either during or right after the 1964 pennant race, still in his 40s. Very sad baseball death. And there's a cancer center in Seattle, a major research and treatment center named after him. His brother, I believe, was a doctor. And, that is, his name is perpetuated and will be in the Northwest.
Good. Hey, Gabriel, this is terrific. You'll keep coming back, hopefully, spinning your yarns about your love of baseball. Your passion shows through. That's what Comfortably Zoned is all about. And I'm thrilled to have you as a regular contributor.
Thank you, Ralph. I always enjoy talking with you.
All right. Be well and enjoy where you live in the Northwest is truly God's country.
Absolutely.
So keep it.
I'm going for a walk right now.
All right. Stay well, my friend. And if you're listening out there, I will be back at you before you know it. Thanks for listening.
Be well.